She always talked about me in the third person, even when I was standing right in front of her. Everyone said she was just old. But the truth turned out to be so much worse that I couldn't bring myself to say goodbye to her. I don't know when I first noticed it, but it must have been early. Maybe when I was 4 or 5, toddling around at family gatherings, chasing my cousins through my grandma's creaky old house in upstate New York. The place smelled like mothballs and cinnamon, with faded floral wallpaper peeling at the edges. She'd be in her rocking chair, knitting or flipping through a dog-eared romance novel, her glasses perched on the end of her nose. My cousins would run up, giggling, begging for candy, and she'd call them by name, her voice soft like warm butter. "Here's a peppermint for you, sweetheart," she'd say, pressing a wrapped candy into their hands. But when I'd approach, all shy and hopeful, her face would change. Her lips would tighten and she'd look past me like I was a shadow. "Give that boy some space," she'd mutter to my mom, or "He's always underfoot." Never my name. Just he or that boy. It stung even back then, but I was too little to make sense of it. Kids don't question adults much, you know? I just thought maybe I'd done something wrong. Maybe I wasn't cute enough or loud enough or whatever it was that made her light up for my cousins. So I tried harder. I'd draw her pictures at school, lopsided houses with stick-figure families under a yellow crayon sun. I'd leave them on her kitchen table, watching from the doorway to see if she'd smile. She'd glance at them, then toss them in a drawer without a word. By the time I was 6, I started noticing other things. Like at Christmas, when she'd hand out gifts to all the grandkids. My cousins got shiny new toys, remote control cars, Barbie dolls, Lego sets. I got nothing. Not even a card. My mom would pull me aside, her face all soft and apologetic, and say, "She's just old, honey. Don't take it personally." But how do you not take that personally? I was a kid and my grandma acted like I was invisible. At family dinners, she'd pass the mashed potatoes to everyone but me. If I asked for something, she'd pretend she didn't hear. Once, when I was maybe 7, I spilled milk at her table. It was an accident. My elbow bumped the glass while I was reaching for bread. My cousins had spilled stuff before, and she'd just laugh it off, grab a towel, and say, "Oh, accidents happen." But with me, her face went cold. She stood up, grabbed a rag, and mopped it up without looking at me. "Clumsy, isn't he?" she said to my aunt like I wasn't even there. I remember my cheeks burning, wanting to disappear under the table. By the time I was 10, I decided I'd win her over. I was stubborn like that. Christmas was coming, and I spent weeks making her a gift. I took construction paper, glitter, and glue, and made a card. It was messy. Glitter got everywhere, and the glue left crinkly spots, but I was proud of it. I wrote inside in my neatest handwriting, "Merry Christmas, Grandma. I love you." I wrapped it in tissue paper and gave it to her after dinner, my heart pounding. She opened it, her hands trembling a little, and for a second I thought maybe this was it. Maybe she'd finally see me. But then she tore it in half. Right in front of me. The pieces fluttered to the floor, and she said, her voice sharp, "Don't try to be cute. It doesn't suit you." I stood there, my stomach twisting, while my cousins played with their new toys and the adults pretended not to hear. My mom hugged me later, saying she didn't mean it, but I knew she did. I stopped trying after that. Growing up, I learned to live with it. Family gatherings became a game of avoidance. I'd stay out in the yard or hide in the attic, anywhere but near her. But it wasn't just the big moments, it was the little things that kept cutting. She'd send birthday cards to my cousins, but never to me. At Thanksgiving, she'd tell stories about her childhood, her kids, her life, but if I walked into the room, she'd stop talking like my presence broke the spell. Family photos were the worst. She'd pose with everyone, but when it was time for me to join, she'd say, "That's enough pictures for now," and walk away. Once, on a whim, I checked her photo albums tucked away in her living room cabinet. Every picture of me had a label on the back, "Guest." Not grandson. Guest. I asked my mom about it once when I was folding laundry in our cramped apartment in Queens. She sighed, her hands pausing on a towel. "She's old-fashioned," she said. "She's got her quirks. Don't let it eat at you." But it did. How could it not? When I hit my teens, I started pulling away. I'd make excuses to skip family events. Soccer practice, homework, friends, anything to avoid that house. But sometimes I couldn't get out of it. Like my 16th birthday when my mom insisted we visit her. I spent the whole day dreading it, sitting in her stuffy dining room while my cousins bragged about their new cars or prom dates. Grandma handed out her famous brownies to everyone but, yep, you guessed it, me. I laughed it off, but inside I was done. I told myself I didn't care anymore. She could pretend I didn't exist and I'd do the same to her. But then things got weirder. When I was 23, I was back home for the holidays, crashing at my mom's place. My grandma had moved into a smaller house nearby and my mom asked me to help clean out some of her old furniture. I didn't want to, but my mom looked so stressed, I caved. We spent the day hauling boxes and wiping down dusty lamps. That's when I found it, an old wooden dresser heavy as a rock shoved in the back corner of her basement. One of the drawers was stuck, so I yanked it open. Inside was a leather-bound journal, its pages brittle and smelling like old ink. I don't know why I opened it, maybe curiosity, maybe spite. But when I did, on a page, I saw my name. Or, not my name, but a name. A single line written in her spiky handwriting. I never forgave her for her naming him after my boy. That name was his, the one I lost. My heart stopped. I flipped through more pages, my hands shaking. There were other entries, going back years. One from when I was born, she had the nerve to use his name. My boy's name. It's like she wanted to replace him with it. Another, from my first birthday, he's here again, that child. I can't look at him without seeing what I lost. It hit me like a wave. My mom had named me after my grandma's stillborn son, her first child who'd never lived past a day. A son she'd carried, loved, and buried before my mom was even born. And somehow in her mind I'd stolen his place. I wasn't her grandson. I was a thief. I sat on the cold basement floor, the journal in my lap, feeling like I'd been gutted. All those years I thought it was me, something I'd done or hadn't done. But it was never about me. It was about a ghost I didn't even know existed. I wanted to scream, to burn the pages, to confront her. But I didn't. I put the journal back, closed the drawer, and helped my mom finish cleaning. I didn't tell her what I'd found. I couldn't. It felt like betraying her would be like betraying her, somehow admitting her mother had hated me for something she'd done. Second update. After finding the journal, I couldn't shake it. It was like a splinter under my skin. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every moment I'd spent with my grandma, seeing it all through this new, awful filter. The way her eyes would glaze over when I walked into a room, like she was dragging her back to a pain I couldn't fathom. The way she'd flinch if someone said my name too loud. I started noticing how my mom would hesitate before calling me, like she knew it was a trigger. It made me wonder, had my mom known all along? Had she chosen my name knowing it would haunt her mother? Or was it just a cruel coincidence? I tried to move on. I was 24 now, living in a tiny studio in Chicago, hustling to pay rent and chasing my own life. But family has a way of pulling you back. My grandma's health kept declining, and my mom would call me, her voice tight, saying things like, she's asking about the family. I doubted that she was asking about me. Still, I'd visit occasionally, mostly for my mom's sake. Every time I stepped into that house, it felt like walking into a minefield. My grandma was Frylia now, her hands knotted with arthritis, her voice barely a whisper. But she still didn't call me by name. She'd say things like, tell him to sit over there, even when I was right in front of her. It was eerie, like she'd built this world where I was just a placeholder. One day, my cousin, let's call her my closest ally in the family, texted me. She'd been helping clean out my grandma's attic and found a box of old baby clothes. Tiny knit booties, yellowed onesies, a faded blue blanket. At first, she thought they were my mom's or ours, but then she saw a tag sewn into the blanket with a name, my name. Not mine, but the other boys. My grandma had kept everything, like a shrine to the son she'd lost. My cousin was shaken, saying I had no idea she was carrying this. She asked if I wanted to see the box. I said no. The thought of touching those clothes made my skin crawl. It felt like I'd be stepping into a grief that wasn't mine. But then something shifted. I don't know why, maybe I was tired of running from it, or maybe I just wanted answers. I started digging. Not in my grandma's house, but in my own way. I asked my mom about her brother casually over coffee one weekend when I was visiting. Her face went pale and she set her mug down too hard. She never talked about him, my mom said, her voice low. I only knew because I found his birth certificate once when I was a kid. She cried for days after I asked. My mom admitted she'd chosen my name because she thought it would honor her mother's loss. She had no idea it would do the opposite. That conversation cracked something open. I started wondering if I could fix this, not for my grandma, but for me. I wasn't ready to forgive her, but I hated how her pain had shaped my life, like a shadow I couldn't outrun. So, I decided to try something crazy. I started leaving things for her, small, anonymous gifts. A new knitting pattern book left on her porch. A bouquet of her favorite flowers, no card tucked inside. I dropped them off when I knew she was at church or her doctor's appointments. I don't know what I expected, maybe I thought it would soften her, or maybe I just wanted to prove I wasn't the ghost she saw me as. My cousin helped, sneaking the gifts inside so my grandma wouldn't suspect me. For a while, it seemed to work. My mom mentioned my grandma was perkier, even talking about the family more, like her old self again. She'd mentioned the kind stranger who left her those gifts, wondering who it could be. It felt good in a weird way, like I was rewriting the story. But then, one day, my cousin called me in a panic. She'd been at my grandma's house when another gift, a scarf I'd left on the doorstep, arrived. My grandma picked it up, her hands shaking, and then dropped it like it burned her. "It's him," she whispered, her voice breaking. "He's trying to make me forget." My cousin didn't know what she meant, but I did. She thought the gifts were from her dead son, not me. In her mind, I was trying to erase him. That was the first twist I didn't see coming. It gutted me. I'd been trying to build a bridge, but instead I'd made her think her ghost was haunting her back. I stopped the gifts after that. I couldn't tell my cousin or my mom. I just couldn't deal with it anymore. Final update. My grandma died last winter, just after New Year's. She was 88, and it wasn't sudden, a slow fade, her body giving up after years of carrying too much. My mom called me late one night, her voice breaking over the phone. She said my grandma had been peaceful at the end, surrounded by family in her hospital bed at home. My cousins were there, holding her hand, telling stories. My aunts were there, singing her favorite old hymns. My mom asked if I'd come to the funeral. I said I'd think about it. The truth is, I didn't want to go. Not because I hated her, hate would have been easier, but because I didn't know how to mourn someone who'd never seen me as her own. The journal, the baby clothes, the way she'd flinched at my name, it all swirled in my head like a storm I couldn't calm. My cousins were posting pictures online, her with them at graduations, at weddings, at Christmas, all smiles. They didn't know about why she treated me differently. To them, she was just grandma, the one who'd spoiled them with love. I envied them that ignorance. But then another twist came. A few days before the funeral, my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. She looked like she hadn't slept in days, her eyes red and puffy. She handed me a small wooden box, no bigger than a shoebox. "She wanted you to have this," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't want to open it, but my mom insisted. Inside was a letter, folded neatly, and a silver pocket watch, its face etched with age. The letter was from my grandma, written in her shaky hand. It wasn't long, but it hit me like a freight train. She didn't apologize, not exactly, anyway. But she wrote about her son, the boy she'd lost. How she'd carried him for 9 months, dreamed of him, only to lose him before he could hold him. How my name had ripped open that wound, and how she'd never known how to close it. But then she wrote something I didn't expect. "You're not him." I know that now. I wish I'd known it sooner. She said the gifts, the scarf, the flowers, the knitting book had made her think. She'd figured out they were from me somehow, even though I'd never signed them. She said they'd reminded her she still had a grandson, one she'd pushed away for too long. The watch had been her father's, meant for her son. Now it was mine now. I broke down reading it, ugly, crying on my couch while my mom sat beside me silent. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me was angry. Why couldn't she say this when I was alive? Why had she waited until she was gone? But another part of me, a part one didn't want to admit existed, felt lighter. Like I'd finally been seen, even if it was too late. I still didn't go to the funeral. I couldn't. The thought of standing by her grave, surrounded by family who'd never understand, felt like too raw, too heavy. Instead, I did something else. I took the watch, drove out to the lake where we'd used to go as kids, a place she'd loved before things got so complicated. I sat by the shore, the cold January wind biting my face, and I held the watch in my hand. I thought about her pain, her loss, and mine. I thought about how grief can twist someone into something they're not, and how love can sometimes get buried under it. I didn't forgive her, not fully, anyway, but I let her go of something. Maybe it was resentment. Maybe it was the need to be seen by her. I keep the watch on my desk now. It doesn't work, but I don't mind. It's a reminder, not of her rejection, but of how messy and human we all are, even when we hurt each other. I don't talk about her much, but when I do, it's not with anger anymore. It's with something closer to peace,